about 3 weeks ago we planted our potatoes, our main crop potatoes in this plot here. At the time conditions were extremely dry, in fact it was almost desert-like. Fortunately within about a week of them being planted we had some fairly steady rain, and as you can see they've come along admirably now. Now the next thing that we have to do is to try to protect the forming potatoes themselves from getting into the light. So what we're going to do is to draw some of the soil from around the plants here up to the sides of the stems. We're not going to cover the tops up because they need to stay out in the light, otherwise they're not going to grow. We can't do it all at once, so we start and we'll do a little bit today, and then as they start to grow a bit taller, perhaps in another week's time, we'll draw a little bit more up until we get them probably about this high. Depends on how much space you've left between the rows as to how much soil you can draw up. Remember when we were planting these that I did say that first edge there mustn't be put right up to the side of the bed, and this is the reason, because we've got to draw soil up onto that side and onto this side. So let me show you how we're going to do that. The tool we're going to use is this. It's called a draw hoe. You see that? It's just a long handle, a metal plate which has got a sharpened edge on one end there, and it's fixed at right angles to the handle. Now if you haven't got a draw hoe and you don't have the time to go and get one, then an alternative would be a garden rake, because you've got exactly the same configuration there, but instead of having a flat blade you've got individual teeth, so you'll be able to draw the soil up just as easily with that. So let me show you how we do it. It's called a draw hoe, and we can use it in a chopping motion into the soil and gradually draw the soil up underneath the stems. Now we're not trying to put the soil over the top, we're trying to push it underneath and support the stems as well. So there we go. Pull it in as closely as you can. Now that's adequate for a start. What we'll do now is go to the other side and pull the soil from here onto them as well. Now bear in mind that we've got 2 rows here now, so only half of this soil is going to go onto this one and half on the other one. No need to measure it, but just approximately halfway and start to draw the soil in again. Now, if we take a closer look at this one here, we've got the soil pulled as tightly as we can into the main body of the plant there. The individual stems are not covered over the top, but the soil is drawn all the way around them, and the same along there. Now that's adequate for the moment. As the plant's growing in another week or so's time, we'll go along, we'll probably go a bit further back there and draw even more soil up, so they gradually built up, and the intention, as I said before, is to cover the centre there and keep the new potatoes as they form out of the light. If we don't do that, they'll turn green and they won't be fit to eat. Right, on to the second row. Right, that's the first half of the second row done. Just a couple of points I want to make. These annual weeds that you see around here, don't worry too much about them. There's no point in pulling those out before you do this job, because they're just going to get uprooted anyway, so you don't need to worry about them. You'll also notice that down in this centre here, I haven't taken the surface of all the soil. I don't need it all at this stage. I've taken enough there to cover the stems as they are at the moment. As they get bigger, I need more soil, so I'll drag more of that over, and the ditch here, if you like, will actually get deeper. But that's enough soil on those for the start. So let's step over there now and onto the second side. And that's the end of the last row. One more job to do. I'm going to give them some fertiliser. Didn't give them any fertiliser at planting time because they hadn't any roots then, so they wouldn't be able to take it up. They're growing quite vigorously at the moment, so this will just give them a burst. Now the fertiliser I'm going to use is just a general purpose fertiliser. You can buy a specific potato fertiliser if you want, that's entirely up to you, but I always find that this is adequate and I use it all over the garden. I prefer one that's like this in a pellet form or a granular form because it's easy to spread. Some of these will land on top of the leaves, but you can just push those off, it won't do any harm. I usually measure this by taking a handful and I scatter that per square yard, or my estimation of what a square yard or a square metre is. And it's just a question of sprinkling it over the surface. No point putting it on the paths because the roots are not there and certainly not going to be there at the moment. There we are. Now, one more job I'm going to do, you don't have to do, but I think that looks a little bit untidy at the moment because the central bit's got my foot marks all over it, so I'm just going to go over that with a hoe, just loosen it up and get rid of the footprints, but that's entirely up to you. Now I think you'll agree that looks tidier than it did with all those footprints on it. The other thing it does, it loosens the surface, which means that when we come to rake the soil up next time onto the plants, it'll be that much easier to do. And it also helps to get rid of those bits and pieces of annual weeds that were there. We'll come back again in another couple of weeks and we'll have a look and see how they're progressing and what jobs we need to do next.